Welcome to another edition of the Learning Investor. So, where we're always learning about money, investing, and retirement. So, I've got 3 questions for you. Do you have too much month left at the end of the money? Do you know where your money is going and each month? And do you want to have better control over what your money is going and what it's going to? And today we're going to talk about budgeting. I know a lot of people don't like budgeting. Used to. I didn't like it either. I thought that it was restrictive and it would tell me what I can't do with my money. When there was a lot of things I wanted to do with my money. I wanted to buy this thing and I wanted to buy that thing. And if I made a budget, it would always tell me I can't afford to do this or I can't afford to buy that. So I'd have to figure out another way. Until I learned some of the secrets about budgeting and some of the different ways to budget. I've learned that budget doesn't restrict your money, but if used right, it can empower your money. Instead of your money telling you what you can and can't do, you can use a budget to tell your money what it can and can't do, what it's allowed to do. And so it's kind of like a map for your money. You ever gone on a trip and you have your where you start from, your starting point, and then you have your destination, and you got to figure out how to get there. Well, that's kind of what a budget does. It helps your money get to where it's supposed to go. It may start with just a paycheck or your job or something like that, but if you learn how to budget and you learn how to use it right, and it works, learn how to make it work for you instead of you having to work for it, then you can tell your money what to do and what it can't do. It kind of empowers you to have more control over your money. And I found that there's basically 3 different ways to budget, depending on how simple or complicated or how you want to work it out with your finances. And so, by the way, I'm still learning about this. I'm always learning about money. I'm not a financial advisor, so this is not financial advice. You kind of have to find your own way to do things. But here's 3 different ways that you can use a budget to help you out. And one of them is the simple budget method. This is very, very basic. What you do is you just take the amount of money that you're bringing in and subtract the amount of money that you're spending, and you find out how much you have left. It's extremely, extremely simple. Say you get paid so much per month, and your bills are so much per month, then you'll know how much you have left over. If you have money left over at all, a lot of people don't have money left over. They got too much month at the end of the money, and so they've got to figure out a way to survive the last week or 2 of the month. And so, for example, let's say you're making $50,000 a year. Or let's suppose you're making $15 an hour. So you're making $15 an hour, and you're working 40 hours a week. And so that's $600 a week. Because 20 times 15 is 300, and then 2 times that is 600. So 600 before taxes and everything. And suppose you get paid twice a month. So that's $1,200 a month. I'm trying to make sure I do my math right. So, yeah, that's $1,200 a month before taxes and everything. And if you got taxes and benefits at your work, that's going to take that out. That's going to be an automatic expense before you even get your money. And then you got your power bills, and your electric bills, and your grocery bills, and your car bills, and you have a student loan, you got those bills. And if you got kids to feed and family to feed, you got to pay for all that too. And so all that comes out of your paychecks. And sometimes you may not have a lot left over. But you can take the whole amount that you're earning minus the whole amount that you're spending, and that tells you the difference, your cash flow for the month. And if you don't make enough, then my previous video about how to fight inflation, you can you can use some ideas from there to maybe increase your income or reduce your expenses and some. Another way to budget is the timeline budget. This is like the simple method, except it follows the flow of the bills through each month. For example, suppose you get paid on the 1st of the month, and then you got some bills that are due on the 5th of the month, and you got some due on the 10th and some due on the 15th. And then you get paid again on the 15th, and you got some due on the 20th and some due on the 25th, and then you go back to the end of the month, you got month bills due, and then you get paid at the beginning of the month again. You kind of follow the progression of the bills. So you'll get paid maybe, let's say you get paid at the 1st of the month and you have so much money. So you got $1,500. And then you got a $500 bill that comes out on the 5th. Okay, so then that brings that down to $1,000. And then you got a $200 bill that comes out on the 10th. So that brings it down to $800. And then you got gas that you got to pay for, and this you got to pay for, and you kind of figure out how the money flows. And sometimes, if you find that some of the bills drain too much of your money between paychecks, sometimes you can rearrange your bills, change the due date that they're due, or change when you pay them, things like that, to kind of make it where you don't go in the red between paychecks. And so you can kind of see how things flow throughout the month using the timeline method. Another way to do budgeting is to do the goal-oriented method. This is kind of how I do things. I'm kind of a goal-oriented person. So what happens is with this is it's the timeline method, but things change as goals are achieved. So say, for example, you're saving up for Christmas. And so you might save between January and October. So, because a lot of times in October, that's, people start buying Christmas presents in October, and then you got Black Friday in November, and then in December, it's crazy. So, so you know how much you want to spend for Christmas. Say you want to spend $1,000. Well, what you do then is you take that, divide it by 10, and you know how much you need to save for the first 10 months of the year, from January to October. $100 a month. That's not bad. Or suppose you got some debt that you need to pay off. You can take that debt and make payments on it, and then you'll figure out how long it'll be before you have that debt paid off. And then once that debt is paid off, then you can rearrange the budget again and say, okay, this debt will be paid off in 6 months. Okay, after 6 months, then I have this extra money. What am I going to do with it? Well, I'll use this portion, throw in savings, or I'll use this portion to give me a raise. It's always good to give yourself a raise. Or I'll use this other part to go and accelerate and pay off the next target debt. Or if you got a vacation that is coming up, say you've got a summer vacation, then you only have so many months to pay for that summer vacation. Well, then you know how much you need to save there each month. And so I kind of use that a lot. We have debt that we're paying off, and so once it gets paid off, I divvy up the money and divide it different ways, and we go to the next target debt. We kind of reward ourselves for paying off debt and increase our weekly budget. We use a budget a lot for just about all of our money. I even use the budget for how much money I have to invest. I mean, how much money do you know? Do you know how much money you have to invest? If you don't use a budget, you probably are just shooting in the dark and just guessing. But if you budget how much you have to invest, you'll know. Now, there's pros and cons, and that's one of the pros is how much extra you have that you can invest for the future. Another pro is you have more control over your money. You actually get to see where it goes and what it does and tell it what to do and where to go. A con is that sometimes a budget will make things evident that are problems. They point out problems in your spending and problems in your finances and things that you just need to fix. That could be considered a pro if you fix them, so that'd be a good achievement. Another con would be it actually shows you how little money you might have at the end of the month. And then you'll have to decide, well, how do you increase your income? If you look at the inflation video that I did earlier, you might learn that, there's several ways you can increase your income to fight inflation. Anyways, So if this video has been helpful for you, just give me a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more. Again, this is not financial advice, but it's some things that I use and that I've learned and I'm still learning. So let's learn together. Talk to y'all later.